You welcome you all to the next session on Python programming course. We are currently in the third module. We were talking about the object-oriented programming. In our previous session, we discussed what is object-oriented approach, what are the different features of object-oriented programming, what are the different terminologies. We also discussed the class definition and how to create an object for the defined class. So these are the points we had already discussed in our previous session. What is object-oriented approach, object-oriented programming concept, and different terminologies that are coming in the object-oriented programming. Then we talked about how to define a class. Then we also discussed what do you mean by special attribute, which will be beginning with double underscore. Then we also discussed how to create an object. How do we create an object for the defined class? Then we also discussed the importance of using the self parameter in different methods, including the constructor. We had seen how the constructors can be defined in Python, which begins with double underscore init double underscore open close parenthesis. This is a special function which behaves like the constructor to initialize all the variables. Now in this session we are going to discuss the different built-in attribute methods that are available in classes and objects. In Python we have some of the built-in functions which are used to access the attributes of a class, or you can say an object. Using these built-in functions, you can access the attribute value, or you can check whether the attribute exists or not, or you can modify the attribute value, or you can even delete the attribute value. So these are some of the built-in functions which are used in Python programming. Let us see what are these methods or functions. The first one is the get attribute. This is the syntax of get attribute. You give the function called get attribute object and the name, and the default can also be given. It is used for accessing the attribute of a particular object. So you give the object name and you give the attribute name, then it gives you the value of that particular attribute. Another method is built-in method is the has attribute method. You give the object and the name, it will check whether an attribute exists or not. Next method is setting the attribute. So this is the syntax of set attribute method. Give the object name, then the name of the attribute, then the value of the attribute. And the interesting part of the set attribute method is you can set an attribute with a new value, and if the attribute does not exist, the attribute will be created for that particular object. So that is the interesting part. Whereas in other programming languages like C++ and Java, we have not come across this situation. But here in Python, you can create an attribute whenever you want. In the same way, you can delete the attribute whenever you want. Now, another method is the del attribute method, where you can again give the object name as well as the name of the attribute, which will be used for deleting an attribute. Okay. So, these are the four built-in functions, the four built-in functions which are used to access the attributes. Get attribute, has attribute, set attribute, and delete attribute. Let us see an example in Spider, the demo program. I'll go to the demo program now. So this is the demo program which we are going to see now. You can observe, okay, yes, so this particular program has all the code. Let me copy this code. I paste it here, and we are not going to have I will take this code. I'm going to copy it here. Fine. Okay. So here we are going to discuss the built-in functions to access the attributes. Okay. And I'm not going to have this function for the time being. Okay, so I'm not going to have these also. Yes, so now let us see this class definition. I'm defining a class called student, and you can observe I have the doc string, because always the first statement in the class definition is to be the doc string. So I have this doc string, and I have the constructor. We had seen constructor can be defined with double underscore init method. I have the constructor, and here I am going to have 4 different attributes, or let me say 4 different arguments, in which 3 arguments give you the value, whereas the first argument should be always the self parameter. Okay, so what we are going to do here, I pass the values to these variables, and these values will be assigned to the members, data members of this particular class. Okay, then I have the display method with the self parameter as usual, and I am going to just display what is the course name and roll number of your student. Fine. Now the main program where I am going to create the object. So let me create 2 objects, student 1 and student 2, and the first student has the attributes. It is having the attribute roll number. I pass the roll number, then I pass the name of the student. That is the order I have in my constructor, correct? And this is the course name. And the second student again I am going to create with the roll number as 5, and I give the name of the student, I give the course of the student also, and I just display the information about these 2 students. Okay, now we are going to use the methods get attribute, has attribute, set attribute, and the delete attribute methods. Okay, now what I do, I am going to just use the print function, and in the print function I say the first student's name, and I am using the get attribute method, and there I give the object name as student 1, and I give the attribute name as name. So this is the attribute value which I want to get, so I give the attribute name. Okay, then I am going to use the has attribute method. So the first student has this particular attribute or not. I just want to check whether the object is having this attribute or not. So what I do, I give has attribute, and I give the object name. You can observe here I give the object name, and I am going to give the attribute name here. So this will return a boolean value. It returns a boolean value. It says whether this attribute exists in the object or not. Whereas here it is going to return the value of this particular attribute of this object. Okay. And as I already told you, the set attribute will be used for setting a new value to your object, setting a new value to an attribute, or if that attribute does not exist, it will be creating the attribute. Okay. So here the age attribute is not there for this particular student object. Yes or no? Right? It is not there. So what I do, I am going to set the attribute called age and I give a value to it also. Suppose, say for example, if I have the attribute already, right? So if the attribute is already available, what you can do, you can give set attribute, you give the object name as student1 is the object name, and you are going to give course attribute, and you want to change the course of this particular student, right? So earlier the student1 object is having the course as BCA. Now I am going to change it to, let me say, BCom, right? I am going to change it. So what happens here? If this attribute is already there in the object, the value of the attribute will be changed. If the attribute does not exist, it is going to create that particular attribute. So that is what happens here. The object is not having the age attribute. When I use the set attribute method, it creates this particular attribute, right? In the same way for the second student, so this is the second student object, and for the second student object I am creating the rank attribute using the set attribute method. Then I display the student information, and since age attribute is newly added attribute, I am going to use the get attribute method to get the value of this attribute. The same way rank is the newly added attribute of student2 object, and after displaying the information, because the display method, as we know, the display method will display only these three information: the course of the student, name of the student, and roll number of the student, right? But what we do here, the second student's rank attribute is set, and for the first student I have set a new attribute called age, which is not available in the display method. So I use the get attribute method and I just display the age value of the student1 object and the rank value of the student2 object. Okay. And if you want to delete the attribute, what we do, we use the delete attribute method and we are going to delete it, right? So after deleting, if you try to access that particular attribute, it will not be available, right? So this is a simple demo program that shows what are the 4 important built-in functions available to access the attributes. Fine. So let us try running this program. Let me clear the console and I am going to run this program. I run this program and I am going to say this is class demo for built-in attributes, built-in methods, let me say. Okay. Now you can observe I have the first display method for displaying the first student information. What is the first student object information? The course name is BCA, name Sana and roll number 1. And the second student information, it is BBA, Sam and 5 as the roll number. Then I use this print method to get the attribute value, which is the name of the first student object, correct? Name of the first student object. So it says first student's name is Sana. Obviously student 1 object is having Sana as its name. Then I am going to check whether this object, student 1 object, is having the age attribute or not. Do I have the age attribute for this particular object? Obviously there is no age attribute, so it returns false. I said it is going to return a boolean value, so it returns false. Then I have another print statement to check whether the first student age attribute is set. I am going to set, the first student's age attribute is set and the second student rank attribute is set. Okay, and since the set attribute does not return any value, it is going to simply assign a value to the attribute, or it creates the attribute and assigns the value. It is not going to return any value. So that is why the set attributes gives the none value here. Now in the display method, we will have only the course name, name of the student and roll number, and for which I am using the get attribute method to get the age of the first student object. How do you get the value here? Because already we have set the attribute called age and there we had assigned the value 21. So you can see here in age I have value 21. Then, and for the second student also I am displaying second student information. I am displaying as the course name and roll number, and rank is the newly set attribute for the second student object. So I have rank as 5. Then we are using the delete attribute method. So second student's rank attribute is deleted. As I told you, delete attribute will not return anything. So the value is printed as none. Then I try displaying for student 1 and I try displaying student 2 also. And you can observe here I have deleted the rank attribute of student object 2. Okay. Now if after deleting, if you try to print or if you try to get the attribute value of that attribute which I had already deleted, it is going to give you an error. Say I am going to run the program again. I run the program again. After deleting, what happens? Let us see. Right. So earlier I commented this line. Now I am going to try to get the attribute which is not available in that particular object. So I just execute the program. You can see it shows the attribute error. Why? Because I have deleted the attribute here. At this particular point, I use the delete attribute method and I have deleted the rank attribute. After deleting, I try to access this particular attribute which is not available. So it gives you the attribute error. And if you want, you can what you can do, you can include it in the try catch block, and in the except block you can just check whether attribute error occurred or not. If so, you can handle it there. Okay. So this is a very simple demo program that shows what are the different built-in methods available to access the attributes. Fine. Now, apart from the built-in methods to access the attributes, there are some built-in class attributes also available in Python. So some of the built-in class attributes that are accessed using the dot operator are the doc, which gives you the doc string, and if the doc string is undefined, if you have not defined the doc string, it gives you none value. Then another built-in class attribute is __ dictionary. It contains the dictionary. The dictionary contains the class namespace, right? So what is the main module and what is the class name, all those information will be available in this dictionary. Then you have name attribute. This contains the name of that particular class defined. Then you have module attribute, and you can observe the attributes are prefixed and suffixed with double underscore, right? So that is why we call it as a special built-in class attributes. And this contains the module name in which the class is defined, and in the interactive mode it is going to be always underscore underscore main, because inside this main module only we will have all the classes defined. Then we have basis class attribute. This contains an empty tuple, and this tuple containing the base classes in the order of their occurrences in the base class list. Especially if you have inherited lots of base classes in multi-level cases, and this order will be shown here in the basis attribute. Okay. So these are some of the built-in class attributes which are accessed using the dot operator. So let us see the demo program. I go to the demo program now. Okay, very good. So this is my demo program, and the demo program, as I told, these are the 5 different built-in class attributes which will give you the, I am going to comment this because it is going to give you an error, right? So this, the same program I am going to add this. Okay, so let us comment all these things. I am going to comment all these things. Fine. So this is the part we are going to discuss. I have defined a class. I have the docstring for the class. I have the init method, which is similar to your constructor, and I have a display method. I create 2 objects and I just display the information. So rest of the things I have put it in the comment line, and now I try to access the built-in class attributes. What are the built-in class attributes we had seen? Doc, name, dictionary, module and basis. Let us just try running this program. Let me clear the console. I run this program, and you can see what is. So the first 2 display method, student 1 display and student 2 display, displays the information about the first student object and second student object. And then I am going to have the docstring, and the docstring of my class definition, you know that a sample base class for students. So a sample base class for students is the docstring, and I print the name of the class. The name of the class is student. Then I have the dictionary, and the dictionary will have all this information. You can observe the module is the main module because it is in the interactive mode. So the main module is the module always, and the docstring is the sample base class for students, and we have the init constructor also. Then we have a display function. Then we have dictionary, correct? Then we have weak reference. All these are defined in the dictionary of that particular class. Then the module gives you the main module. Since it is in the interactive mode, it gives you the main module. And then basis will give you the base class, and here I don't have any base class. This is the first class I am defining. I am not inheriting anything from anything for student class. This is one of the base classes I am defining, but automatically these classes will be inheriting the object class, right? So this is the base class for this particular class. So any class that you are going to define for the first time will have this as the base class, object as the base class. Okay, so these are the different built-in class attributes which gives you the information or the additional information about the class definition. And the next one that we are going to see is the destructor in Python. As we have constructors, we have destructors also in Python. So Python, what it does is, Python automatically deletes an object that is no longer in use, right? As you have the garbage collection in Java, in the same way Python is also having a garbage collection, automatic garbage collection. So if a particular object loses the scope of it, automatically the object will be deleted. So Python, what it does, it periodically performs the garbage collection to free the memory. But we can implement a special method called delete method, which you can call it as a destructor, that is used to clean up any non-memory resources used by the object. Okay. So for example, if you have any database connection or if you have any opened files, right, all those files if you want to close, you can do it in the delete method. So before the object gets deleted, the destructor will be invoked and it closes the database connection, or it closes all the files that are opened for manipulation. So that is what you call as clean up any non-memory resources, because all the memory resources will be taken care by the garbage collector, correct? Because the garbage collector will be freeing the memory. But if you have any non-memory resources, what you can do, you can use the delete method, which acts as the destructor. And this method will be invoked when the object is about to be destroyed, right? So in the demo program, we are going to just see you can use the destructor. So this is the destructor. Okay, so you just define it with del keyword and double underscore, prefix it with double underscore, suffix it with double underscore, and you just print the object is destroyed. Now when I run this program, you can see it displays the student object is destroyed. So when I am about to delete the object, it will display the object is destroyed, because in the method I invoke the class name by using this underscore underscore class dot underscore underscore name, that gives you the class name. So the class name of this particular object, student1 and student2, is student. So the class name, and it says this particular object is destroyed. Okay, so just before the object is getting destroyed or deleted, it will be invoking the destructor method. Okay, so that's it about the built-in methods to access the attribute and built-in class attributes that gives additional information about the class and the destructor method. Okay, so let us discuss more on classes and objects in the next session. Thank you.